Welcome to Vitamin OC. I'm Joanna Weiss.
And I'm Whitney Gomez. Every week we bring you your recommended dose of civics and civilization in Orange County. Our guest today is Carol Crane, a longtime Newport Beach resident, community volunteer, mother, and member of the Newport Mesa Unified School District Board of Education.
For more than 3 decades, Carol has called Newport Beach home. She's raised her family there alongside her husband, her 3 beautiful children, all of whom attended Newport Mesa schools and from kindergarten through graduation. Her, like many parents, her involvement in education began not in elected office, but in the classroom, on school campuses, and through years of volunteer work supporting students, teachers, and families. And over time, that involvement grew into leadership. Carol served in numerous parent and community organizations, developing a firsthand understanding of both the opportunities and challenges facing local school boards. In 2020, she was elected to the Newport Mesa Unified School District Board of Education and was reelected in 2024. I was proud to support her in both of those campaigns.
Same.
Carol has served as both trustee and board president, helping oversee one of Orange County's most respected public school districts. And we are so happy to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here today.
Today, Newport Mesa Unified serves more than 18,000 students across Newport Beach and Costa Mesa, and the district encompasses a diverse range of schools and communities, and its leaders face increasingly complex questions about academic achievement, student well-being, school safety, technology, career readiness, and the evolving role of education in public life. There's clearly a lot going on. We appreciate your making time to talk to us, and we can't wait to get into it all. Carol Crane, thank you for coming.
Thank you. I'm flattered that you asked me to come and speak.
We're going to start with a question that came up in speaking with some friends who live in the Port Streets. I understand there was an issue related to some of the environmental treatments going on. Do you have an update for the community on that?
Yes, we always use our summers to fix our fields, and there's been some renovation happening, and we got some emails from the community concerned about the pesticide use on the field for our renovation. We ended up putting the project on hold, looking into the matter. And then we also reached out to the city because a lot of the citizens of the Port Streets have said, well, the city has done something that was the use of using organic material for their renovation of the field. So we did, and it appears that we're going to go ahead and use the same product that the city is using. So we did pause, listen to our community, and we are going forward with what the city is going to also use.
That sounds like a great solution.
Yeah, we need to be able to be listeners of our community because we represent them. And if it's something that we could do that is safe and that works, then we will do it.
That's one of the reasons I'm so excited that you've been serving on the school board, and was so thrilled to support you because you are exactly that kind of leadership that our communities need. You come from the community and you care about it deeply, and that shows up in everything you do. So thank you.
Absolutely. A lot of leading, especially when you're an elected, is that you need to be a listener first and hear what your community is asking for. And if we can do it, we can. And if not, we can honestly say that we listened and we tried and we couldn't.
I also want to tell our listeners a little bit about the Newport Mesa Unified School District. So it is made up of 7 elected members who govern the district. You represent the people of the district, Area 3, which includes Corona Del Mar High School and Back Bay High School. Your board sets goals, makes policy, and evaluates the schools. And to get into the meat of it, you're paid for your time, which you should be. The trustees make $650 per month for your service. And they can access a benefits package worth about $25,000 a year. And I mention this just because I'm not sure that people understand that it's a paid position. And to the extent that people would consider running, if they know that you are a little bit reimbursed for your time at least.
Yes.
I know this is an inordinate amount of time that you spend doing this.
Do not figure out the hourly.
Oh, I did.
Okay, do not. That's a bad idea.
$20 a day. And then last week, I would probably average about $5 an hour.
Okay. Well, you're really worth that.
It's good.
Obviously, we're not in it for the money.
Right. Yeah. Glad that no labor lawyers are looking into this too much. Can you talk about what motivated you to run back in 2020?
Yeah. So the why is quite obvious. I love learning. The classroom was always my happy space. I became an educator after going to Santa Barbara at UCI. And then I taught middle school, and I loved the classroom. And People thought the middle school was challenging. I actually found it very rewarding because kids are young enough to be silly in the classroom, but old enough to think critically. And so I taught for 12 years in Irvine Unified, and then, of course, became a mother of 3 and got involved in our schools. And that's when I retired from Irvine and devoted a lot of my days to community service, specifically our schools. And so I was PTA everything, PTA recorder, secretary, I was PTA president, chaired galas, etc. And so I think it was very much innate in me to be a part of a learning environment, whether it was from being in the classroom or serving the classroom as a community member. And then I also was a political science major. So once my kids grew up, I was always fascinated by the politics of any kind of election. And when I heard that our current board member had been on the board for 29 years, I thought, hey, let's just maybe change it up a bit. And so I did have a wonderful meeting with Martha Floor, who is fantastic and has served her community very, very much for decades. And I said, hey, how about maybe a change in direction? Do you think I could be a wonderful substitute or maintain your legacy and do the work? And sure enough, she said, Carol, you would be wonderful. So I went ahead and did it. But if I really dig a little deeper as to the why, I was an immigrant and I came here as a political refugee in 1975. I was 12 years old. And when I came, the classroom was my safe haven, and I was very much welcomed by my teachers. They were very understanding. Just imagine the cultural change of being 12 and just being thrown into a whole new country, coming from the Middle East, no less. And so I think it's my way of giving back to the community that took me in, and specifically education, because I love learning.
Well, that's quite a story.
Yes.
I can see how sincere and how passionate you are about it.
Thank you. I am.
I think most of us understand the big picture of what the Board of Ed does, but can you walk us through on a daily and a weekly basis what you are doing?
Yeah, because it's not really a typical job that you would imagine with an office. The only office I have and the only meeting that I have to be at is the public meeting that we hold every month at the boardroom. Everything else is not typical. It's actually a very atypical job, which I think is a good fit for me because I have a lot of energy and I love to be out in the community. So a lot of our work is attending meetings, whether it's PTA or community meetings, foundation meetings, visiting school sites in order to see if the programs that the superintendent and staff are executing are working, being out into the public and getting feedback from the pulse of the community. We attend a lot of dignitary type events, from Chamber of Commerce award ceremonies, Costa Mesa, we straddle 2 cities. And so we do a lot out in the public, but most importantly, what we do is we get the pulse of the community. We speak to parents. This is why a little later we'll talk about bike and cell policy. The reason why we came up with those, it's not because Sacramento told us to. It's not top down, it's grassroots. Our parents were concerned about the use of cell phones. So, hey, let's work together and partner. We can create our own agendas. And I just love the autonomy and the fact that we could be innovative. Example, we have surplus property that we're going to look at in order to provide workforce housing to our employees.
Wow.
Which is fascinating to me. And so you can do a lot with our job.
Great.
That's wonderful. Well, one of the things that has happened over the last, I'd say 8 to 10 years, is that these school board races and school boards have become a little bit more politicized.
Just a little bit.
A little bit?
Just
Did you say
a little
just
bit.
a little bit?
They have become politicized nationwide quite a bit. And do you think that engagement is helping the school districts at all, or do you find that that's sowing more division? What's your perspective on the increased political nature of your job?
It's a great question because there's no doubt that local governing bodies have been, specifically the school boards, have been very much under a magnifying glass. And I would say, especially since COVID, I think COVID, we saw a paradigm shift where basically everything that we did was on Zoom, which means that it was more accessible to families to see the work that we do. Plus, it was a very emotional time for all families because all of a sudden their world was turned upside down and they wanted to know why. Why are kids not at school, etc. So when you put these local elected officials in a situation where there is division, it's okay. I don't mind it. In fact, it's good to be accountable to the people who elected you. So in a way, for me, I saw that as a plus, as a positive, and how we can use it to our advantage. And so we were more out there. We were more transparent, more accountable, but we also were very good in our decision making and how we engaged the community, our staff, in order to move forward from something that was very, very significant. And I'm using COVID as an example, but we've also had the parent right issue, for example. It's okay to be questioned. It's okay to disagree. But above all, though, when I'm thinking as an elected, especially of minors, we are stewards of minors. It's a whole nother level of accountability to them because they don't have a voice. We are their voice. And so in public education, we accept every single child that walks into our door. It doesn't matter if they're green, red, they're dyslexic, they have disabilities, they're perfect. We are going to make that students feel seen, heard, and valued, and no matter what zip code they're from. And so this is my unity of purpose. And if I can always focus back to that, everything else is a distraction.
I wish all trustees felt that. Protective over all the students in their districts. That's wonderful.
It's one of our mottos. All students are all our students. And I live by that.
Amazing. Carol, in looking back at some of the things that you've said publicly over the years, you talk a lot about local control. Mm-hmm. Are there things that are decided in Sacramento that you think would be better decided locally? What makes you say that local control is important?
Well, surprisingly, LEAs, which means local educational agencies, which are districts, are very much autonomous in a lot of the things that have to do with curriculum and different pathways for success for their kids. Sacramento typically is the one that sets the standards for curriculum, the fiscal budget, of course, what money we get from them, and graduation requirements. But beyond that, a lot of it is given to, the responsibility is given to the LEAs. And that's because not every district is the same. So it would be very restrictive to put everybody in a box. So we actually have had great success in forging our own path as Newport Mesa. And that's because we have a great administration and we have a very high performing board of governors, trustees. And because we straddle two cities, there are needs everywhere. Although, again, as I mentioned earlier, all our students are all our students. And so when we look at pathways for success, we also keep an eye on what is the portrait of a graduate. What are these businesses wanting from us as far as when we release them, as we just did last week, into the world. And it's very exciting because we see the trends that are coming. And so, for example, we have been approving a whole bunch of coursework that includes cybersecurity, animation, gaming. Okay, all this doesn't come down from Sacramento. It's from us who are looking at the ground and seeing where our students want to go and how they could go and open up pathways that aren't just necessarily a 4-year college pathway. The other thing is our bike policies. If we see a need in our community, because we are coastal, we began seeing the proliferation of e-bikes on our streets. And where we're hearing from families, from neighbors about the safety of our young bike riders. And we customized a policy that we'll discuss later. So the point is that Sacramento does not really put its thumb on us. It allows us to be autonomous in a lot of ways that fit our own demographic. And the only concern that I have from Sacramento is the protection of Proposition 98, which dictates the revenue for education. Did you know that under law, which is Proposition 98, 40% of our state budget has to go to education? TK, all the way to the colleges, 4-year colleges, 40%.
That's incredible.
It is incredible. So what we need to make sure is that those funds are coming our way and that they are being spent in the right direction. And right now there's a big movement at our level and also at the state level to diminish the achievement gap of students. We need to improve drastically across the state on that. Newport Mesa does happen to be above average, but we have to think of all kids.
Can you talk a little bit about the achievement gap that you're speaking of?
So what's been happening is that we've been underperforming as a state when it comes to standardized testing, because that's our only gauge really. What has been going on is that the responsibility has been always on the districts in order to improve the test scores of their students. Now, of course, things happen. COVID threw a wrench into growing test scores, but now we're kind of bouncing back, but not enough to meet our standards. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to also reach out to Sacramento saying, hey, What's your accountability in helping us being accountable? Don't just throw it on us. We need you to establish a dashboard, for example, that you can keep track of as far as how you are doing in how you support us. There are 4 assembly bills that are being passed. So far, they're in committee, but they're looking really nonpartisan and strong that will establish an accountability blueprint for the legislators in order to help the districts in closing the achievement gap.
That's great.
Good.
And I'm sure along the way you've had some challenges. And could you talk with us a little bit about some of the more challenging votes that you've cast over the 6 years that you've been in office?
Sure. For the record, whenever I cast a vote, I am 100% in. However, I walk into a meeting with an open mind. So before that, I do a lot of research. I do a lot of homework. As I mentioned earlier, I love learning. So I love to read and do my homework. The hands down, the most challenging decisions I've had to make was during COVID. COVID-19 was not a friend to anyone.
No.
It was very challenging on many different levels. 1 is I was brand new. 2, I'm a people person. I love to meet one-on-one. It was on Zoom. Decisions were made based on this thing out there that we didn't know much about. People were dying. We didn't know what to do with that. We had learned that children are less susceptible to COVID, but they go home to adults and multi-generational adults. They work with adults, right? So we had to decide every day what to do and how to move forward. On top of that, we had to deal with a community that was very divided on the issue. Our meetings were very contentious. When we were finally back in the boardroom with masks, of course, and plexiglass, we were threatened. There's one meeting where I remember we had to shut down the meeting and go into the superintendent conference room. There were threats. We were told that, don't worry, the dais is bulletproof if you need to tuck under it. So the challenges were many. And for me as an educator, I knew that the best place for a student to learn is in the classroom. For me to make that decision to go virtual was tough because I knew there's going to be collateral damage, not only educationally speaking, but socially. Because as we know, socialization is the most important part of being in a social environment in a classroom at school. So for us, not only was that, again, like I said, it's multi-level. There's a lot of different layers to the challenges. The game was changing every single time as we were learning more about this virus. Okay, first it was like you have to be 6 feet apart, you have to have plexiglass. Not only did we have to think about the educational pedagogical part of it, but supply chain demand. Okay, we also had to think about our teachers and their bargaining units that were protecting them about being in the classroom. So the challenges were horrendous. We were working 30-hour weeks, meetings after meetings with our superintendent. I do believe that every couple of days, our superintendents had meetings with the Orange County health director, trying to understand what this was, how to go about it, waiting for the state to act. It was just a lot of pressure. And our biggest thing was, okay, how do we mitigate the situation? There was no win-win at that time. Very challenging.
That was a doozy your first year.
Yeah, first year. And to boot, I was actually, and I'm going to get a little personal here, I had just found out I had breast cancer. So I was going through my breast cancer journey exactly the same time as we were doing all this work. And I don't know how I did it, but I did it. I did not miss one meeting.
That's incredible.
Of course you did.
But
you know, Carol.
There was no way I was going to give up on our kids and our community. I mean, we went to PTA meetings. I remember just get blasted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of challenges, Newport Mesa serves both Newport Beach and Costa Mesa. What are some of the challenges and opportunities you see given that you're serving communities with different demographics and sometimes different needs?
Okay, so again, Carol, the way I look at things, diversity is our strength. All our students are all our students. And so when we look at these demographics, I see opportunity. I see a world that is realistic and not in a bubble. I see our kids being citizens of the world and being connected with other cultures, or someone doesn't necessarily come from where you come from. And so for me, that is a plus. And this is why I think Newport Mesa is special. And a lot of it has to do with our philosophy of every kid that walks into our classroom matters, no matter their zip code. And so if a kid starts at a certain level, all we want is for them to go straight up and to the right. If you ever gone into econ classes, it's straight up and to the right. And so The challenges actually become a strength because what we end up doing is we end up becoming innovative in how we meet the needs of the students. For example, we put some money into an after-school swim class for our Costa Mesa kids because some of them had never seen the ocean. Some of them have never been in a pool. And so what we had done is we took that special aspect of our community and we made it better. We made it safer. And I went to visit these lessons and there were parents there that were in tears because they're so grateful. On the other, we also know that we have high achievers that need to be challenged. The board began asking for an initiative from our staff to take these high achievers and build up their academic challenges. We launched a statewide Battle of the Books initiative this year, where 4th and 5th graders across the whole district would read a set amount of books. They would volunteer to be part of the program, and then we had this city competition. And so those were kids also whose needs needed to be met. And so we come up with innovative ways to reach all the students that need our help.
That's great. The swimming lessons, that was a great idea.
Yeah.
One of our former podcast guests was a specialist in social media and kids. The proliferation of cell phone and social media has become quite an issue for school-aged kids and high school kids in particular. You mentioned before some of the policies that you're developing from the grassroots side on this issue. Could you talk about where the policies stand in the school district and what you think about these kinds of policies?
Yes. So again, us being out in the community, we have a barometer of where our families stand. Anderson Elementary hired Jonathan Haidt, who is a very well-known author and researcher. And once our teachers and students and community heard about the use of cell phones and how it does decrease the whole social interaction with others, we started hearing more from the parents about, hey, let's do something about cell phones. And of course, the cell phone policy kind of evolved because it is not needed for learning. We have all the tools necessary in the classroom in order to educate a child. We have Chromebooks. We have the internet that we can use through the Chromebooks in order to find any kind of research and use tools. And so cell phones were not needed. It wasn't necessary for learning. We also noticed that at recess and at lunch, kids weren't really looking at each other in the eyes.
That's so awful.
They weren't. And so we went ahead and in March of 2023, we passed a cell phone policy that banned cell phones in our campuses, K to 8. And then 9th grade to 12th, they could use given teacher prerogative.
Okay.
So we were anticipating a major pushback. Guess what? The board received three emails out of thousands of households saying that this was a bad policy because of safety reasons. What if I need to see my child? How would I locate my child? And there was, even at the site levels, principals did not really report of any significant pushback.
Right.
And 2023 is before, I think, Sacramento was taking this up. So we were on the forefront.
Yeah. In fact, it was in September of 24 that Governor Newsom signed the bill that came out of the assembly. And I know LA also was doing it just about the same time. So I believe we were one of the first districts in the county, if not the state, to go ahead and do something quite draconian.
I think they call that leadership, Carol.
Yeah. Yes, they do. And I have an anecdote because I went to visit the campus CDM because CDM piloted this program with a Yonder pouch. And so I went about a week or two later after school started and we did all the transitioning, right? And I walked around with my fellow trustee, Lisa Pearson, and we literally had tears in our eyes because we heard chatter. We saw boys playing hacky sack. Remember hacky sack?
It's back.
It's back.
Yep.
It is completely back. Mm-hmm. And it's like, wow, how cool is that there's this like socialization going on, and it was magical.
Awesome.
Magical.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're also creating some magic in your career technical education program.
Yes,
and I know you've been a big supporter of that. So can you tell us how that works and how you have come to understand that there are many paths for students and developing these paths for them?
Yes. Well, that's when a parent comes in handy because, I had 3 children and they were all so different. And I wish that my son had a career technical pathway that he could have hung on to because he's very creative and just does not fit in the box. And so, of course, that comes from, personal experience, mm-hmm. which also makes you a better leader, a better, innovative person, right? So yes, we have grown our career technical education in the last 5 years by leaps and bounds. We have 145 sections of CTE. We have 26 pathways, and they are sprinkled around our campuses based on demand and need. So it's really exciting. For example, at Estancia, we have an amazing construction management program. In fact, they won a county competition just 2 months ago. And this was going against even city colleges. And it was just fantastic. We brought them to the board and awarded them a certificate of recognition. But it's just, how cool is that? And 2 of the 6 students were offered jobs right there and then at the competition.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
And what's really exciting is also, again, when we talked about Sacramento and how much control do they have over courses, well, we just approved an AP cybersecurity course just recently, production design if you're into stage production. Not only that, we also are offering internships for our students that are juniors this summer with some corporations, including Edwards Life Sciences.
Great.
So it's like, yeah, bring it on.
Terrific.
Right?
Okay, and we can't let you go without asking about e-bikes, because I get in big trouble with my kids for being on Nextdoor, and I cannot look away from the e-bike argument. So tell us what's going on with e-bikes.
Wow. Okay, so e-bikes, we in Newport Mesa started seeing the whole e-bike thing coming 5 years ago. In fact, I had brought it up to our local legislators and said, what's Sacramento doing about e-bikes? And so they went back to Sacramento and said, guys, what can we do about e-bikes? No one had known about e-bikes. Turlock didn't care about e-bikes. Fresno didn't care about e-bikes. Mesa didn't care about e-bikes. Well, fast forward 4 years, here we are, and a lot of people are caring about e-bikes. And so what we have been doing, because that's part of our job too that I didn't mention earlier, is that we also very much advocate at the state level with our legislators. I go to Sacramento twice a year. I love it. Like I said, I'm a poli-sci major. I love looking at the Capitol and just seeing the power and just the excitement of what could happen with policy that is written well. So anyway, we decided as a board, and that was actually one of my tougher decisions, to look into and explore the option of banning bikes on our campuses. On our campuses, not on our streets, on our campuses, TK to 8.
Okay.
The biggest challenge for me was the fact that there may be families that depend on this transportation. It could be a single mom, 3 drop-offs, and this would give you a little bit of a break to get your kid to school. So we looked at data, and we found the areas where there would be more of a need for that. And it turns out that we provide transportation, bus transportation, and for the older kids, OCTA offers a free pass for secondary school children. So we knew that it wouldn't be an equity problem in a sense that it can be done. So what we did, and even before that, for the last 4 years, we've been doing a very robust education and safety campaign with our students, working with our police departments on both sides, city and Costa Mesa and Newport, where they would come to our schools. Newport Beach Police would come to our schools and do a PowerPoint presentation. And then a quiz would need to be passed, and then you'd get a sticker in order to park your bike on campus.
That's a good idea.
And the PTA actually bought bike racks for us and everything, with a pumping station and all. I mean, we were all in. However, with the increase in injuries, the complaints from our community, specifically around Ensign, we started thinking about safety. We started seeing injuries. I personally watched a fatal accident of an e-bike, though the Colby IPA, Huntington Beach, we saw that happen. We were the first call to 911. So I know what these bikes can do. They're exponentially more dangerous than manual bikes. Helmets.
They're mini motorcycles.
They're mini motorcycles, and they're heavier. And when you're, 11, 12, 13, I don't know, how much you can protect yourself from these fast bikes as far as impulsive decision making.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
They look like a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun, but
very dangerous.
Boy, can something happen, because if you're doing a wheelie on a regular manual bike, it's a little different than doing a wheelie on an e-bike.
Totally.
Going 10, 15 miles, 20 miles an hour. So as a board, we had a very, very robust discussion at least 2 board meetings. We had a study session specifically on e-bikes, and then we had a general session where we wrote the policy, and we did a couple of drafts. And finally, we passed it 6-1. And the policy basically says TK to 8, no bikes, no e-bikes or e-scooters on campus. 9th to 12th, you're welcome to do whatever you want with e-bikes. You're going to be driving anyway.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And ninth graders and beyond have jobs. They have extracurricular activities, sports or whatever. And so they need that transportation. We see it more of a need than the younger kids.
Good.
So there we go. We're very proud. We passed that back in, was it like about 2 meetings ago? And I can guarantee you, because I looked it up, we're the first one in Orange County to be so restrictive, if not the state.
Well, it was the talk of the town. I can tell you that. Yeah.
And guess what? Did we get a lot of emails? We got more emails than the cell phones.
Oh, interesting.
We did. However, we got more emails
In support.
Good. Of our policy. And let's not talk about the neighbors, that don't have kids in our schools.
Right.
Totally.
They are absolutely thrilled because they're seeing the danger in all of it. And our board's very big on safety. One of our trustees went to Corona del Mar to visit. She was serving on a panel for a capstone project for our American Global Studies program. And so she went to visit her friend who is a teacher at Corona del Mar. Walks in and then they start talking about e-bikes. The students that were seniors, when they heard what we did and passed that policy, they clapped.
Wow.
You know why? Because they're drivers now.
Yeah.
And they see what's going on.
Oh my God. That's a riot.
Okay, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I go, okay, this is it. We did it.
Good.
That's great.
Congratulations.
It sounds like you got some emails. So some parents do know how to advocate
Yes.
for themselves and,
Yes.
and speak to the board. But a lot of our listeners are parents. And do you have any suggestions for them? If you want to advocate on something, what would you suggest that parents do?
First of all, just be involved in your kid's life. That's advocacy number one. Show up to PTA meetings, volunteer in the classroom. All that, I think, is part of advocacy. Now, of course, if there's an issue where you feel that we're not doing our job. When I say we, I'm talking the pluralistic we, our staff, our teachers, our principals, our superintendent. Start at the site. Develop relationships with the teachers and the staff and the principal. Also, delivery of how you want to advocate or what you want to advocate is everything because they will listen. And if that doesn't happen, then you go up to the next level and I'm always reachable. I put my cell phone out there. I get a lot of calls, especially at the end of the year about staffing and all this, just concerns. But I think the number one is just be present in your kid's life at school. And in elementary school, you have a lot of, we vet 5,000 volunteers a year.
Wow.
Our HR department vets 5,000 volunteers a year, which is hugely high as far as parent engagement, if you think about it.
Great.
That's wonderful. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, Carol, thank you so much for being with us today. We value your leadership in the community. Running for office is kind of a second career for you. Incredibly admirable. And thank you for giving so much of yourself to the community. We really appreciate that. And you serve as an inspiration to a lot of us.
Thank you. As you can tell, I love my job. I don't even call it a job. It's more of a calling. And you just never quit on kids. Every kid has a gift and it is our job to find it.
Well, thank you for stepping up.
Yes.
Thank you for serving. Every role like this is so critical in communities across the country. So I hope somebody's listening gets motivated to get involved as well.
Thank you.
Great to meet you. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us for your recommended dose of civics and civilization in Orange County.
We'll see you next time on Vitamin OC.